You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Welcome. It's always sunny here at the House of Sunny podcast, mostly because I'm here, your host, Sunny. As usual, Doug is also here with me today. Hey, Doug.
Hello.
This show is brought to you by the House of Sunny Elite Squad. If you want to become a squad member, it's not easy. You have to go over to patreon.com/House of Sunny and donate $2. We have some nice rewards.
You have to be elite. That's elite.
That's elite. You can be elite with just $2. Of course, I have some funny things over there. Like I think you're a red shirt. You're a Star Trek red shirt if you donate $2. Correct. Because you're just not special. You're just not elite enough. You go a little higher, you get some nice titles.
You're probably going to get killed.
Yeah, you're going to get killed if you just give $2. But anyway, you can get into the elite squad if you give $2, and that gets you into our private Facebook group online and some other goodies. We have some nice rewards, so get on over there and help us out. It's joke time, Doug.
Oh, okay.
Why are there no knock-knock jokes about America?
Why?
Because freedom rings.
I
The
like
problem
it.
with that joke is there probably are knock-knock jokes about America. But anyway.
Well, that's beside the point.
I was glad that you said why instead of, what do you mean there are knock-knock jokes about America? Because that would have ruined my joke.
No, I knew it was a joke. I'm savvy that way. So you want to hear this joke that we found? Okay. I went to the pub with my girlfriend last night. Locals were shouting, "Pedophile!" and other names at me just because my girlfriend's 21 and I'm 50. Completely spoiled our 10th anniversary.
Oh.
Gross.
Come
on.
That's a good one, though.
Those pedophiles.
Damn pedophiles.
Didn't Elon Musk call the Thai... Did you hear about all that? We shouldn't get off on a tangent, but Elon Musk seems like he's completely gone off the rails, where he was claiming that he could solve the Thai soccer team trapped in the cave situation, and someone pushed back like, your plan is stupid, and Musk tweeted that this guy was a pedophile.
Oh my God, no.
Just arbitrarily. Yeah. That guy's in trouble. He is just a nutcase.
He's kind of... You don't want to think that he's nutty because he's, SpaceX. But yeah, he seems a little nutty. And he dated Johnny Depp's ex-wife, who's also a nut.
Ooh.
So the fact that they dated.
Bad people.
Yeah, weird.
So anyways, what else is going on?
I was going to say something about pedophiles, though. Everybody's saying that pedophiles are being normalized now by the left.
Yeah, I think that's true.
It only took them 2 years. No, 2 weeks to normalize transgender gender dysphoria. Right. Took them 2 weeks to normalize that. So
that's all coming. You know that's the next step. It was certainly based on, there was this executive, right? Was he with Disney that got? No. I'm sorry. It was the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy, wasn't it?
Yes,
James Gunn. They found all these tweets where he was making these really sort of beyond the pale type jokes about pedophilia, reference type stuff. And apparently, that's totally normal in Hollywood. No problem.
Well, so when the story first came out, I actually read about it in the left media, the mainstream media, and they reprinted a couple of his tweets, and I thought, oh, this just isn't fair. Like, I first of all, I hate mob justice, and I hate this social media mob justice bullshit and people getting fired from their jobs because of some joke they tweeted. Like Roseanne, like that whole thing with Roseanne was wrong.
Yeah, people are being tried on Twitter now.
Yeah, and they and tried, but not even tried. Like, you're guilty before it doesn't even matter the facts. Like Roseanne.
Yeah, tried is too fair.
They called Roseanne's tweet racist, and nobody thought Valerie Jarrett was fucking black. Nobody. she actually thought she was white. Like, I thought she was Iranian. I thought she was Arab or something, but which she is, I think, half or something like that. But
Yeah, right.
Roseanne said she thought she was white. So anyway, I believe her. I think that was bullshit. Show canceled right away. But so, okay, I'm reading about this guy. I'm reading a couple of these tweets, and they're obviously jokes. And they're not even that bad. And I'm like, oh, this just isn't right. Like, I don't care if it was conservatives that did it or the left. Like, I'm looking at this, I mean, this is icky. I appreciate that we're in a culture war and that we should. I'm one of these people who's, well, I'm not that hardcore, but I'm probably more hardcore than others. Like, I'm ready to fight. I think we should be fighting. I don't think that we should be giving these people room or anything. One of my favorite people that I read is Kurt Schlichter, who is like a total fighter.
He's great.
Yeah, he's great. So I read this article. I'm like, oh, this is bullshit. And then Ted Cruz tweeted out this huge a picture of all of these guys, this guy's tweets. And they were nasty. Like, I'm reading these and I'm like, oh no, this isn't even jokes. I mean, some of these are just, they're not even, like, he's not even joking. It's gross. And the jokes are, there's too many jokes about child rape. It was gross.
Yeah, when you put them all together, in other words, what you're saying, it was not a good picture.
Well, not just all together, but the ones that the mainstream media was plucking out, cherry picking to put in their articles were like the most tame and the most obviously jokey ones. But really the collection, the ones that, you know, really bad, they didn't print those. The ones
By the
that
way,
you
did you
read
see
them and you go, oh no, this guy is creepy.
Something's wrong with this guy. Yeah.
Right.
Did you see the Silicon Valley episodes this season, where the essential joke was that you can be anything in Silicon Valley, and I would also extend this to Hollywood. You can be anything in those cultures except Christian. So this guy got outed as a Christian, and it was a huge scandal.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And meanwhile, everyone else is creepy and crazy, and they were like, yeah, you can.
And he's like this nice person.
You can like put LSD in your coffee and, you know, you're cool, and that would be called, you know, revolutionary in Silicon Valley. But if you're a Christian, you're horrible. So anyways, this came to real life. There was this, did you see the story about this guy? He's actually an executive at William Morris, and he's some sort of like S&M.
Oh yeah. And his
bondage master
and
or
his
something.
Boyfriend died or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrapped him. Okay,
Mummified
I'm not making
him.
this up. He wrapped him in saran wrap, which was some sort of mummy fetish, and the guy died. And the guy that died was a UCLA professor.
Right.
And this guy was not charged, and he wasn't even charged by police with like involuntary manslaughter or anything. It was just like, oh, you know, mummification gone awry. So the guy dies, and this dude, he's like totally cool. Like, okay, you know, he's a William Morris executive, and he's well known through the business and the entertainment business. Like, he's an S&M master or whatever they call these guys, and he's, you know, into leather or whatever. And this is completely acceptable and completely normal. And then he kills you. And it's like, but if you voted for Trump, or if you're a Republican, or you're right wing in any way,
you can't be tolerated. You're
you're out of the business.
Right. You're out of the business. Right. It's funny that one guy is like a top exec in entertainment and the other guy's a college professor. Like, if that isn't fucking perfect.
Yeah, right.
The one guy's the masochist and the other's the sadist, and it's just a nice little club.
Yeah, it's very complementary professions.
Yeah.
By the way, the guy that got killed, I was reading his background or something, and one of his degrees was in feminist performance.
Oh my God.
Hate to laugh at the mummy dead, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's America.
Yeah, that's America. That's our culture. The height of culture. The university professor and the Hollywood exec.
I mean, isn't it amazing that we have time for this? I mean, what's happening? I used to think at one time that we didn't need, like, people don't need to have physical, brutal experiences to be grounded and centered and have rational values. Like, I always thought you can
You don't have to
instill.
suffer to
Yeah,
have
you like
values,
you don't have to
right?
be tortured or be in a war or actually endure physical combat to be able to imagine and project the brutality, the potential brutality of life, and that you could thereby, develop rational values without actually experiencing some sort of physical distress. So, and you kind of want to think this about kids too. Like, do I really, I have to subject my kid to like a brutal lifestyle so that he appreciates freedom and America and what he's got, and that he's grounded in life and everything. But I'm increasingly thinking that maybe that's true of some individuals, but like in aggregate, we need like a meteor to fall on like America or something to like just get everyone
Everyone needs to have some.
re-centered.
You know,
We got to get some perspective back.
I
What the hell is
think
happening?
I don't think you need. Well, maybe some people do need to suffer, but you and I get it. I haven't really suffered that much. I mean, maybe more in the last 2 years than ever with this illness. But prior to that, I think I appreciated where we were headed and the ills of socialism and how horrible it would be to live in communist Russia. But part of that is because I'm a big reader. I think literature, that brings it home and makes it emotional for you. And also being a little educated about history. So I think part of the problem is just ignorance, and these people just live in today. They're only aware of how today is. I've thought about that too. Like, how do these people have time to care about such small things when there are people, you've got Iranian women being arrested and killed because they're dancing or taking their hijab off. And then you got people, the mayor of Minneapolis putting the hijab on in solidarity with the Somalis. It's just like, you guys just don't even know. And
and it's not that
like
it's not
her
that stress.
deserves to be put over there, so she knows that. Why don't you go live in Iran for 6 months, and then tell me that you want to come back here and wear the hijab?
Yeah, and it's not even clear that people that are that stupid, if you can't project that in your own mind, I'm not sure that enduring the actual stress would induce some sort of like rational revelation.
Yeah.
She'd probably go over there and be like, "Hey, this is great."
She's probably a masochist. She'd find her Iranian master, get married.
Well, she'd probably want to be a mummy.
Yeah.
She'd probably want to do the mummy saran wrap bit. I don't know. So it's not that physical stressness. I mean, if that was true, that when people go through this kind of stuff, they somehow, induce
They
the
somehow
right.
get capitalism. Because if that
they're
were
not.
true, the whole world would be capitalist. Because
Right.
the history of mankind has been suffering until recently.
Exactly.
So, that isn't what it takes. It does take ideas. It takes literature. It takes history and philosophy.
Yeah,
But
that's why I always
the
get
problem
up.
is the masses don't read really, and our intellectuals are getting mummified by Hollywood execs.
And speaking of dealing with stupidity or not being centered or not focused on what matters, how about the straw thing? Have you followed
let's
this?
talk about straws. Yeah. So that's, that's happening here in California. So
Right, they're arresting. I heard in one, it was at Santa Barbara, that
Santa
they're actually
Barbara's
going to jail
passed a
people.
law where if you're a server in a restaurant and you give out a straw without it being requested, you up to $1,000 fine per straw and jail time, prison for giving out a straw. And the facts of the matter are that the number of straws that are in the ocean are like 0.0000, like, it's like nothing. And the amount of plastic in the ocean that the United States, that comes from the U.S., is something like 1%. So our straws, it's so infinitesimal that it doesn't matter. And this is so typical of the environmentalist movement, where they just kind of pick something and I think that it's almost a game. Can we get people to give up straws? And we can show our power over them, and it's just a ritual. It's not even real. There's no reason to give up your straw. There's no reason on earth But people will do it to prove that they're moral and virtuous.
It's a virtue signal. And you hit the nail on the head. I was just reading an article today about it that it was in Reason magazine where apparently the activists behind it, that is literally what they want to do. They realize that the impact of these straws is minimal and sort of stupid, but they see it as a, quote, gateway plastic. So
good God.
They're finding something sort of innocuous that's easy for them.
First it was the plastic bags, in the grocery stores.
They're trying to get people to think,
At first it was the plastic bags, and now there are no plastic bags in the grocery stores.
Uh-huh.
I mean, what was weird is when I was younger, it was the paper bags. So they went to plastic because they didn't want to cut down trees. And then they went to plastic, and then it was the plastic bags. And now it's bring your own goddamn fucking bag.
Well, now it's, right. Well, you know what's funny to me about plastics, though?
Sorry, I get really upset about this environmentalist stuff. It's like,
but
I don't want to bring my own bag to the grocery store.
Isn't plastic the ultimate material for environmentalists? They said that they're essentially inert and they're not degradable. Isn't that fantastic? They don't change. So if we can just convert, most plastics are made from crude oil and petroleum products. That's the raw material that makes plastics. So you got a bunch of material in the ground that's not doing anything. And then you convert it into like a plastic, which now is not doing anything, and it doesn't change for thousands of years, potentially. So shouldn't we just turn all of our garbage into like plastic squares and then just put them off to the side? Isn't that what they want? I mean, isn't that what they want? They're worried about pollution, and they're worried about
I really
things.
don't know what they want.
They're worried about it being incinerated, and
I don't know.
because
I
if
don't
you
know
incinerate,
what they want power. They don't want a clean earth. I don't think they want a clean earth, and they don't want people to have a good life. And the funny thing, the irony of the whole thing is that like the disabled community is like, wait a sec, we need straws. So, but they don't care. It's a small group of people.
Well, and of course, what's happening too is that the paper, like the alternative to the straws, costs 10 times more and uses more material because the stuff does degrade.
Soggy. When you go into San Francisco, they're giving out these paper straws, and you put them in your cup of ice water, and within 5 minutes, it's falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous.
So they're more expensive, and it's actually going to cost. It's not going to only cost more money. It takes more raw materials to make them because they degrade faster. So it's actually not. And in fact, in some of the cases, the cups that they're making, these sippy cups, use more plastic than the straws did. So none of this is actually reducing straws. But my point is, why do we even want to reduce plastics? I think plastics should be the platonic form of ideal material for the environmentalist that doesn't want anything to change. Their whole spiel is that they don't want anything to be released into the atmosphere. They don't want anything to get into the groundwater. They're worried about those kinds of things. So if you just have a plastic square that just sits there for 1 million years, we should turn the entire Earth into a plastic ball. Then it would never change.
Maybe that's why they're now upset about the plastic in the ocean, because they realize that they really don't have anything to complain about with the plastic in the landfills. So now they have to find a reason, and the plastic in the ocean, which doesn't biodegrade and then traps these sea animals and things like that. But 90% of it is coming from Africa and
China,
India.
Japan.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's coming from overseas, so it's hilarious. The whole idea of a healthy planet, like the planet is not a living thing. I mean, it's just a ball of dirt. And the more important point is that the concept of clean only applies in a human value context. There's no sense in which the earth in it of itself is clean. We don't save the planet or clean. The whole point of the planet and of our lives is to pursue life and to pursue our lives. And the environment's only important insofar as it serves as a value to us. So they disassociate those things, and that's actually a very common sort of conception in the public mind, when you read about saving the planet. What does that mean? I mean, say what? Like the planet is like this furry bunny that's, being shot to death or something and we have to save it. There's no such thing. If we use plastic, we convert petroleum into plastics and that serves us. Well, yeah, you don't want to put the plastics and you start burning them and pollute the air in some way that hurts people. But as long as you take care of the plastics or do something intelligent with them in terms of disposing of them, how does that hurt anything? So they don't think of it cost-benefit analysis. They only think
they don't. And I mean, if they did, they wouldn't be banning straws because it's so infinitesimal, the impact. And straws are nice, who cares? It's one of these things like it's kind of a luxury item. So they think they can shame everybody into giving up their straws.
Right.
And,
well, no one thinks
they don't want humans to have luxuries. They don't want humans to have any fun. And it's not about humans for them, but I think that they've successfully merged this save the planet with save the planet for humans. What about your grandchildren? And you want them to have the earth the way it is now, and it's like it's always sold that way, like we have to save the earth for these future generations to be safe and to enjoy the earth the way that we do, and that's how they shame us. But it really isn't about people. It's about earth being this kind of god and this religious figure. And the earth, the value is in and of itself, rugged. It's not like the earth is gonna freaking go away because of us at the time. We haven't developed the Death Star yet, so a little plastic on earth isn't gonna end the earth. But
what's ironic is that if we live better lives and we have a higher industrial capacity, then that will lead to more children and grandchildren in future generations. I mean, their goal seems to be to exterminate the human race, and they see the human race as like a cancer.
Of course.
So are they really all about the children and the grandchildren? I mean, they want us to save oil so that our grandchildren can use oil? Is that? I mean, I don't get it.
Right.
Like,
that
save oil for your grandchildren. No, they don't want our grandchildren to use oil. They don't want any people. They don't want anything. So that's just a red herring. That's like religionists saying you're going to go to hell.
Like any other people on the left, all they want to do is tear it down. Tear it down. That is the leftists' fundamental, deep philosophy about everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Destroy.
Yeah. So, I got a blood transfusion last week.
I saw that on Facebook, and everyone was very concerned about you. How are you feeling?
Blood came in plastic, by the way. Little plastic.
Ooh. Oh,
packets.
Well, then you should have just died. They should have killed you.
And the tubing, I think, was plastic. And the
should be in jail.
There's a lot of plastic in a hospital. A lot. I mean, if you think about, if you want to end plastic, just the life-saving crap in the hospital that's made with plastic is amazing. I think they used to use rubber tubing and things like that, but plastic is way more sanitary. And anyway, it was, I people send me messages all the time asking me when I'm going to make videos and why I haven't and stuff. And it's just because it's because I'm really sick. Mm-hmm. I guess I needed a blood transfusion last Friday. Damn it. But I do think serious. It is serious. It's very serious. And they don't give those to you unless you're basically, falling over, because they're very risky. And if I'd known in advance, I would have done a directed donation from Ashley, our normal co-host here. But because we're the same blood type and she's really healthy. So
talk about taking one for the team. See, this is
what said she would do.
By the way, if you want to be on the elite squad, this is the kind of shit you're in for.
Give blood.
You literally have to $2 and a pint of blood, please.
Yeah, right. If you're A+, I happen to be A+, and that really makes sense, doesn't it? But
is that a common?
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty common actually. But anyway, I was having all these crazy symptoms and I was attributing them to other things. Like I was really tired and my lips were actually numb and tingly, which should have been a big sign, but I'm like, Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm up and down on all these different medications as they're trying to find the medication that works for me. And one of the medications I've been on for 2 years, up and down, is prednisone. And prednisone has so many side effects, like hundreds of nasty side effects. And withdrawal of pred has a bunch of side effects. So I thought I was tired because of the withdrawal. I didn't think that I was that sick. But then they took my blood, and of course the nurse rushes in. Oh my God. So I had to get a blood transfusion, and I don't know. Let's hope it was good blood. But I think that was the low point. I think it was the last low point. I think I'm just going to get better and better now. I think we found the right drug at the right dose for me, and I found that months ago. But under Obamacare, insurance companies are denying every single thing they can, even things that they can't, like, legally. They're definitely obligated to cover this medicine for me. It's $9,000 a shot, and I'm supposed to have a shot every 4 weeks. But they're like, no, we'll only give it to you every 8 weeks. But it's really clear that I need it every 4 weeks, and almost everybody that takes this drug also needs it every 4 weeks. So they're just bullshit. It's just bullshit. They just don't want to spend the money, and they're trying to save money wherever they can, and they just kind of bureaucracy you to death until you quit. That's their new strategy. So yeah, our insurance premiums are like 7 times higher, and that's what most people see and complain about, and the deductibles are higher and all of that. But what you don't see is that when you're sick, you're also getting everything denied.
Yeah.
So it's actually not covering what it should cover, what it used to
cover. Or they'll say, you need to call us and we need to talk to you about this. And if you don't call us within a certain amount of time, we'll deny the claim. There's ways in which they just try and get away with
There are all kinds
denying.
of so my doctor even has done these like peer-to-peer appeals, and they've just still denied it. So it would have to be a lawsuit. I'd have to hire a lawyer and get what's owed to me. And they know that, how many people are really going to do that?
Yeah,
and you're
most
sick,
people
you don't have any energy, and you just that's exactly what I did. Is simultaneously as I was going through these appeals, I wrote to the drug manufacturer and signed up for their charity, which basically gives it to me for free. And I was like, well, whichever one comes in first, so just try to get the medicine. And I just got a letter yesterday that they're giving it to me for free. So my doctor is...
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So that's really exciting. So now I'm on the dose that I'm supposed to be on. That is, the right dose. I should just be getting better and better now. So this is all the fault of my insurance company that I've been sick this long, and it's all because of Obamacare. And my doctor has been telling me that everything has changed in the last couple of years. Since about 2 years ago, the insurance companies keep denying these really expensive drugs, and then when you call them, you're on hold for an hour, and then you talk to a person who doesn't understand anything, and then they transfer you, and then you're talking to someone else who doesn't understand anything, and they transfer you, and it's like you end up in this bureaucratic hell, and there's no one to talk to. And hours later or days later, as you keep trying to call back and figure it out, you finally give up. So I think I'm going to sue them. I'm getting it for free, but I think I'm going to hire a lawyer and sue them because I want them to give it to me because they owe it to me. I don't want to be a charity case. I don't want to be I don't want my health to be at the mercy of charity instead of the policy that I pay for and that I have. And,
Yeah.
So.
Well, nothing's going to change until we start liberalizing the system again, which
we have
it sounds
to
like
free up medicine. It is a disaster.
Sounds like we're going the opposite way. We're towards more regulation. We're 2/3 of the way towards socialized medicine as it is. I think we have socialized medicine.
We do have socialized medicine, and it's
just implemented through a slightly different method than is typical.
I think it might even be worse than socialized medicine right now, because I think it's really, really harming a lot of sick people, and we're not really hearing about that. I mean, I don't have cancer. I'm not about to die or something. I'm not begging for a cancer drug or an MRI that I need right now to save my life. I can afford to, like, I'll live on prednisone and wait a few months for the insurance company or for something to work out. I'm not in that situation like a lot of people are. And I just can't even imagine what it would be like to be in that situation. I think I would want to kill somebody. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we have stats on this. It's just anecdotal, doctors complaining, and, everybody can see their premiums go up, but this is the dark side that most people don't see, and they're doing it to sick people because we're like a small minority of people. We're not the big agitating political group, but that is what's happening to sick people in this country, in America. And also things I've noticed just having been sick now for a while is that tests and things like that and doctor's appointments take forever to get now when they didn't used to. It used to be that if you needed a CT scan or an MRI, you just got it that day. And now you have to wait at least 2 weeks. So, in Canada, it's 6 weeks or 2 months or something, so the more socialist you get, the longer the wait times for these potentially life-saving scans and things like that. So it's really scary. And we have got to make this a big issue again. And I don't know how we do it because it definitely seems to have been put on the back burner.
Well, it'd be sort of like saying, like if a grocery store said, okay, all pizza is free. Okay, now go to the grocery store and go get your free pizza. See how that works out for you. I mean, that's essentially what socialized medicine is. It's sort of like dealing with the unintended consequences of trying to make something quote unquote free, or disassociating the consumer from his decision or from paying for stuff. And so when you have third parties in control of all this, you don't have anyone economizing or rationalizing their purchases. And then you have government mandates on what insurance needs to be offered and what needs to be covered. And it's really, we're getting the worst, you're getting the worst of all worlds now. It's not even,
I mean, we're running
sort
out
of almost
pizzas.
Worse than socialized medicine.
We're running out of pizza. So you go to the grocery store and you say, okay, I'll take my free pizza. And they say, okay, you need to fill out all this paperwork. And then you need to go across town and talk to those people. Well, then what happens? Well, I don't know. Just go talk to those people. And then you go talk to those people, and then they give you a runaround and tell you, oh, no, you had to go back to that other place. And then you're crisscrossing town. You're filling out paperwork. Days are going by. Meanwhile, you're starving to death. So that is how they're getting away with not giving you the quote-unquote free pizza.
Yeah, and you finally get the pizza, and it's like a tiny, sloppy, cold slice of, crappy, disgusting pizza, whereas you're like, can't I just pay $5 and get like the slice I wanted? Wouldn't that be easier?
What happened to the good old days when you could just walk in and get a piping hot pepperoni with black olives?
And there was like 28 different brands, and
Yeah. And that's exactly, it has really changed. And I first got sick in 2012, and Obamacare wasn't fully implemented then. And I had a bad year that year too. And it was very different then. It was very, very different. So it's really, really changed for sick people. The fact that I have been sick this long is 100%. I would say a year of my illness is because of insurance delays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds crazy, but I've been sick for 2 years. I would have been better a year ago, and think about what I could have done with my life. But I'm sitting here, I'm still getting blood transfusions, and I've just now gotten what I need, not because of them, but because I went outside the system. So that's really scary, you guys. This needs to change. Everybody here, everybody listening is going to be sick sometime. You're going to get old. You're going to need something. And the healthcare system is not going to be there for you. So it's a very, very urgent thing. And how the hell we have the presidency and both houses of Congress and we have not repealed this piece of shit?
Right. That tells
you
you it can never be
condition,
repealed.
and I am 100% repealing this piece of shit legislation. It is a nightmare. And what you can do to compensate for those of us with pre-existing conditions, figure it out. Give me a goddamn dollar grant. That would be better. That would be cheaper for the American people and better for everybody else out there that's healthy or going to get sick but isn't yet sick. Just free it up. And then also implement more free market reforms to make it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and then give me some damn cash. That's how you fix this pre-existing condition scare. It will be $5, if you just free it up.
Right.
So that's what I have to say about that.
It's always amazing to me that people can't look at like a traffic jam on a public highway, right, where the government's providing the roads, but they're not providing enough roads and you're in a traffic jam. Or people look at public housing projects, or they look at public transit or public education, or they look at a public toilet and not realize that when the government provides something for quote unquote free, it's not free. It's a total disaster. And the free market, and yet you go to a grocery store where there's a free market in operation. You have 5,000 choices of beautiful things from all sorts of different price levels, different price points, and no wait in line or very little wait in line. And everything is there, and somehow everyone figured out everything for you. And it's an easy, pleasant experience.
Right.
And yet we want to go towards
upset,
government.
Like when you're at the grocery store and you have to wait in line beyond maybe one person, you're like, what the hell? Like, why don't they have enough cashiers on this? What's going on? Meanwhile, you sit in traffic on a road that should take you 20 minutes and it's taking you an hour, and you're like, that's life. Oh, roads.
Yeah, you just accept it. You just accept it. And here we are with the most important service in our life, which is medical care. We want to go towards the road, public education, public toilet model, instead of towards the grocery store, 5-star restaurant model. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable why every American should be able to extrapolate that and be scared out of their minds about what that would mean in the future. And really, all you have to do is read a few stories out of England where they're like kidnapping babies, and they're like kidnapping and killing babies, and their cancer rate is like the cancer survival rate is really low, and people are dying over there, including babies. And parents,
that's a relatively small, wealthy
and,
country.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like the Soviet Union is probably a better model for what it would look like here, where you've got a large country and, or any real socialist country like Venezuela or Cuba. What happens to the hospitals in those?
Awful.
Can't even imagine.
Can't even imagine. I think that going to a hospital in those countries is actually scarier than not. And you end up just staying home and getting your grandma's herbs. Mm-hmm. and
everything
hoping
goes
for the
back.
best,
So
everybody, I know that everybody's like, it's too late or whatever, or it's not really a number one issue in your life because you're not sick. But I'm telling you, unlike global warming and straws, this really will kill your grandkids. It really, really will.
No, but instead of that issue or some like rational debate about the way to fix it, we're treated to what? Stormy Daniels, tapes,
Trump.
Secret recordings.
Hey, let's talk about
Trump.
that. So Trump. Let's talk about Trump in general. I want to talk about Trump because this whole thing in Helsinki happened, the North Korea, now the tariffs, and now EU's coming back and saying, okay, we'll negotiate tariffs, and everybody's saying, well, he did these tariffs to kind of force a free market on these other countries that have been, quote unquote, screwing us with really high tariffs. And, the question is, do we care that other countries have high tariffs on American products? Is that our business? And if we do, then Trump's doing the right thing. Then it takes somebody to do the unpopular thing, like putting tariffs on things, in order to force these countries to change and come back to the table and make a better deal.
Well, right. Like our whole policy in the past has been, please don't do that. We're sorry. It's okay. We don't want to make anyone angry. And he's right to the extent that, if the goal is really to get to a free market, I'm not entirely sure that's his goal, but I think it kind of is. He'd rather see sort of fair trade.
He's mentioned that a few times, that it's all about that it's a bad deal, and he said, "Hey, let's both go free trade. That's what I'm for." He has said that explicitly in a couple of tweets.
So I think there's like 2 or 3 things here. Like one is, if that's the goal, great. I think he's right, and I think you do have to make some threats and probably risk disrupting the system in order to get to that place. Otherwise, it's just going to always be the way it is. On the other hand, his talk about and his fear of the trade deficit, I think, is misplaced economically. I mean, to say that because we have a trade deficit, for example, that they're stealing money from us, it's actually the other way around. I mean, we get to buy consumer goods and they get IOUs. Now, you could argue that that's not great either. I think there's good arguments strategically why that's not good to have. We're buying a bunch of cheap shit and they're getting bonds and assets. Foreigners are getting bonds and assets. But again, that's even contextual because, are we dealing with Canada? Are we dealing with England? Or, trade with China is different. So, in other words, strategically or geopolitically, China is a threat and they steal our IP and so on and so forth. So, remember when we used to say, everyone was worried about the fact that OPEC controlled a lot of, before the sort of reemergence of the domestic oil industry in the United States, we were very reliant on OPEC, particularly in the 70s. You remember when OPEC jacked oil prices up in the 70s and there's the big oil crisis? And everyone freaked out because we're at the mercy of, these cartels in the Middle East. And, now what's going on in the Middle East, affects everyone in the United States because they control this vital natural resource. And so, there's certainly an argument, just from a foreign policy standpoint, that these sort of primary industries, oil, base metals, and so on, you have to be a little bit careful about how much you rely on foreign countries, particularly ones that are either flat out enemies or that are unstable, or that we can unwittingly enrich or directly enrich,
right,
like we have with the Chinese.
Yeah, we've created and made
who don't
a
share our
powerful
values.
enemy.
Right. So there's a geopolitical issue. Now, does Trump articulate any of this, or does he even think? I think he kind of does, and it would be great if he was better and wasn't as flawed, where someone could articulate, okay, we have geopolitical and foreign policy issues here. We're not worried about Canada. We're not worried about Canada's going to, the fact that we get most of our steel and aluminum imports from Canada, that doesn't worry me that much. But it would worry me if that was true in China.
Does it bother you that Canada has high tariffs on a lot of American goods?
It does. So, I mean, that's a separate issue. So to the extent that we're dealing with, a friendly country like Canada, then you're dealing with sort of like North Dakota, South Dakota. And it's like, well, if one side has high tariffs and they're discouraging our sale of this, and then, I don't like that. I think we should have a free trade zone and be able to define and have trade agreements with friendly countries like Canada or the UK or whatever, that essentially have totally free trade. Now, some of these so-called free trade agreements like NAFTA really weren't totally free trade agreements. They had all sorts of special provisions, and then people just get used to it. And the problem is once you have that policy, people build industries which take long periods of time around that policy.
Right.
So you can't be changing that policy every 3 weeks, because if we start getting most of our imports from Canada and we lose our domestic steel industry, it's not like suddenly we, in 2 weeks we can turn on all of our steel mills again if we need steel. So
right.
This is a complicated issue, and I don't like...
It is complicated, and I think that... So one thing that you just said that I don't think I've heard anybody say is that, some of these bad deals are made, and they're bad deals, but then we adapt and industry adapts and it takes a long time. But that doesn't mean that they're very good for the country. They're not really the best for our businesses.
Right.
But we've adapted, like NAFTA or whatever. And so there is pain involved in getting rid of NAFTA. But maybe it's the right thing to do. I think, getting rid of welfare is going to cause pain, but it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And that's maybe why you phase things out slowly, or you do things in such a way that help people along. Like right now, if you repeal Obamacare, you've got to take care of people with pre-existing conditions because you screwed them. I lost my
Social
fucking
Security
policy. I lost my good insurance policy that I had with a pre-existing condition. So now if I'm thrown out onto the free market, no one would insure me.
Right. That's a great point.
So you have to help me because you screwed me. But
Yeah.
But that would be easier to do. Just help me with some cash and some free market reforms. And I will get through it, and maybe charity or whatever will help me out. I will figure it out. But I would rather have that open market. I would rather be buying healthcare with cash than the way it is today. Because today I can't even buy things, that I need or want. And part of that too is the FDA. I mean, we could get into all this, but
oh yeah, of course.
The FDA makes a lot of stuff illegal. The treatments I could have tried that would have worked 2 years ago. And it may be that I've been sick for 2 years just because of the FDA, really, when it comes down to it.
Well, by the way, we should do a whole podcast next time on FDA because I think there's a whole way in which the FDA actually has created the wrong industry and the wrong approach to medicine. And we can get into that maybe at another time.
Yeah, let's talk about the FDA another time. Maybe I'll bring on a guest or something to talk about it.
But the whole reason why I hate this argument, even amongst libertarian and free market types and the hysteria around Trump, and this is Trump's fault too, because he's doing some good things. And I think he's doing the right thing in certain circumstances, but he can't articulate this in principle. I don't like when libertarians equate international borders to international borders. So you can't make the analogy that trade between Minneapolis and St. Paul or between North Dakota and South Dakota is the same exact thing as trade between the United States and China or the United States and North Korea or the United States and Iran. These are international borders with foreign policy implications, and there's existential implications to dealing or enriching or benefiting, a foreign enemy. And so we can't just say, well, on a free market, we just want, between countries that are, let's say, free countries, for lack of better definition, for generally free Canada, the West, or between states within the United States where, we have a constitution and we have, agreements and a legal system to adjudicate disputes and so on and so forth. You can make all the free market arguments stand. It's best to leave the market alone and let people figure out who's, through comparative advantage, who's best at making what and who's the most efficient. Just let the market decide who's best at making steel, who's best at, making computer chips, who's best at picking bananas, whatever. But when you are dealing with dangerous countries and countries that threaten us or that we don't want to control a vital resource like uranium or petroleum or whatever, or the kinds of materials that are used, for example, in the rare earth metals that I think some foreign countries have a huge control over that we use to make computer chips and other things. There's real strategic implications here. And so you can't just say, well, it's all the same. We just need, Trump's an idiot for passing any kind of tariff or for expressing any sort of concern about how these countries deal with us and trade. And of course, in Trump's ham-fisted way, it's all about winning. We just got to win or, we got to, and so.
It's a very colloquial way of talking, but it does make some, so I think some of this makes sense. I think that we probably do have certain industries that we should try to protect because it's a national security issue and we don't want to have economic collapse because China decides we should, Mm-hmm. And it's not in their interest for us to collapse either. I don't really know why. I mean, they're communists though, so they're not necessarily rational. Like, it's not in the left in the United States wants to destroy this country. It's not in their best interest, but they want to do it anyway. So China is the left. China are run by a bunch of leftists. So at the end of the day, they could easily want to destroy us. And we
they don't have the same
that.
System of property law. They don't have the same court system.
Forget. They may want to kill us and suck us dry, right? I don't know. I mean, you can't count on them to do what's in their self-interest. So I get that. I also get, like, I find it wrong that the EU or that Canada has 25% tariffs on us over certain goods and stuff. I think that that's messed up. They're our friends and allies, and if they start implementing tariffs like that, I think we should be like, okay, screw you. You want to do this? You're going to pay the price. So in other words, a pressure to keep things free and open between friendly countries. I think that would be a good policy. On the other hand, I cringe at the idea of there being some person at the top who's just trying to figure this out, because it's like the whole, the communist leader with the 5-year plan trying to figure out how many boots everybody needs. Like I do.
No. That's not what I
kind of cringe at this idea that there's somebody who's going to be given the authority and power to make these decisions, and they could so easily make the wrong decision. So I think it should be I think it should be a power that is used very sparingly. I think that Trump is trying to free up these markets between our allies. I think that he's definitely trying to open up the EU and Canada to freer trade. He has said that explicitly to them and to the American people. So the tariffs he's put in place specifically to them, he's trying to pressure them to open up. And ultimately, that could be a really good thing.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, there's also, foreign policy bureaucracy that deals with national defense issues all the time in terms of, our defense companies, for example, and the types of technology that they can sell. There's this company, ZTE, this Chinese phone company that was in trouble and got fined by the U.S. because they were shipping phones to North Korea and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's sort of a way to deal with this, but I agree. It's not like I'm advocating, the Central Planning Committee get together and have a 5-year plan.
Yeah, but
there are definitely
you can imagine the dictator, or not even the dictator. You can imagine the Woodrow Wilson or the American president who wants to come in and create order and perfection and that kind of icky authoritarian control freak. That there are way too many Americans who are busybody control freaks, and one of those get into the presidency, and you've got a disaster. Mm-hmm. So part of it too, I really think Congress should be involved. I don't know why Donald Trump can just do this.
Well, there's another. I mean, stepping back just real quick too from it. I mean, Trump's sort of obsession with these trade issues. I think some of his concerns are definitely well placed. Some of his sort of mercantilist, trade deficits are always and everywhere bad type language is stupid and sort of ignorant economically. So there's some good and bad here, but the problem in America is not these trade deals. That's not really the fundamental thing holding America back. The fundamental things holding America back are our monetary policy, the regulatory state, and our fiscal policy, and the fact that we have $21 trillion of debt right now, and it's growing, and we have a budget deficit that's blowing up. So we're an over-indebted country with a massive regulatory state that sort of puts a leash.
Way more important than these trade deficit barriers.
And then we have monetary policy that's completely out of control. That's monetizing debt and causing inflation and causing distortions in capital markets, and so. I wish if he was more, if we had a better president, on either side of the aisle that understood those issues better, that would be fantastic, because that's really where the problem is. Our educational system is a total disaster. The way we do college and, the incentives that the government creates through subsidies for people getting stupid degrees. This whole thing, I mean, it's a gigantic problem we have, and this hyper focus on this trade stuff as if this is the end all be all, that if we just get these agreements in place, everything's going to be great. I mean, there's definitely an issue here, and it needs to be addressed. And but I think it's the focus is a little bit misplaced. And by the way, I think it's kind of super rich that the liberals have found a tax they don't like. They don't like tariffs. Suddenly, that's the one tax they don't like.
If it was Obama, they would love it. They really just hate Trump, and
oh my God,
it really is Trump derangement syndrome. I'm so sick of it. He's doing a good job overall. There are things he has not done that disappoint me, like repeal Obamacare, things like that. But he is trying to fulfill his promises, and I've said this before. My biggest complaint about him was I didn't think he would do that. So the fact that he's doing that, he's really surprised me in a positive way, and I'm open to him doing more good. And I'm not against him trying with foreign policy to fix the North Korea threat. I'm not against him meeting with him. I don't think he's so stupid that he's just going to be like, oh, I've solved that problem because I shook his hand.
Oh my God.
I don't know why people think that Donald Trump, he's an idiot. Oh, North Korea is not dismantling their, okay.
In 30 days.
Right. I mean, I'm sure something will happen. The guy's not going to get away with it. Obviously, Trump meets with people, he flatters people, and then he's also hard on people. He called the guy Rocket Boy and teased him in public. He's been really hard on Russia and Putin, and then he meets with him and flatters him. It's like, there's obviously a strategy and a pattern here. So just wait and see. I think I'm waiting and seeing, is he gonna, did you see him in the primary? He buddied up to Ted Cruz and who's that guy? The black dude.
Oh, Ben Carson.
And then he accused Ben Carson of being a pedophile. And then he accused Ted Cruz of being a liar. It's like, Donald Trump is not flattering these guys in some way that means anything.
Well, no, and that's just why that's not equivalent to when Obama met with Castro, or Obama went on an apology tour, because he was apologizing for America on principle. Obama was anti-American. He wasn't looking to serve America's interest. He wanted to apologize to everyone for how bad America is. And I had no expectation and great fear that Obama not only is apologizing, but that, he's sending billions of dollars in cash to Iran. I mean, he was acting against America's self-interest. Trump meets with these people, but
flatters
a meeting
a
isn't equal to a meeting. He has a goal. I mean, he's meeting with them to serve a tactical, strategic interest. And does Trump, should he be effusively...
A pro-American one. Even if he's wrong,
interest.
It's still pro-American. He's not out there apologizing for America.
No, he didn't go to North Korea and say, we're sorry. He went to North Korea and said, if you guys don't denuclearize, we're going to annihilate you. I mean, he said that in front of the UN. And the fact that Kim meets with Trump and that gets played on North Korean television. Have you ever seen the Vice documentary they did when they secretly were able to get into North Korea on a tour? I mean, North Koreans are exposed to propaganda 24/7. If Trump had showed up at that meeting with Kim and tarred and feathered Kim and then slit his throat, the North Korean press would have spun it, and they would have spun it as a great victory for dear leader. I mean, these people, it's an Orwellian Marxist state with full control over the media. So there's no propaganda victory. I mean, give me a frickin' break.
Well, the other thing is I appreciate, let's take Iran and when they had their uprising when Obama was president and he didn't say anything or do anything about it. And I was pretty upset. I thought, here's a chance for an American president to give them some moral courage and, support this group that's trying to free themselves from tyranny. And he didn't say or do anything. And but at the end of the day, what should matter to Trump is us first. And what matters to me is us first, and then maybe the poor saps living under some tyrant. I mean, it breaks my heart and everything, but I don't really care. If what's best for us is that Trump makes Kim Jong-un able to save face and denuclearize, fine. I mean,
because they're not lobbing missiles at Japan right now. They're not lobbing missiles at Guam.
I mean, it's
there's
really
evidence
important
that they are dismantling test sites, but that doesn't mean that we have to completely believe that Kim's going to denuclearize in 2 weeks. It's been 30 days. Now, if Trump starts becoming a pussy and they start looking the other way as Kim is renuclearizing or building his program out, I mean, I'd be the first one to criticize him. Does anyone think that's going to happen? Does anyone think now that...
The point that I'm trying to make is, if what Trump does in service of America is hard on the citizen of North Korea or the citizen of Iran, I don't care.
Right.
I mean, that's not an argument for not doing the pro-American foreign policy thing. So it just shouldn't even be considered. It's not, a foreign policy needs to be run on what is best for American citizens, not what is best for Iranian citizens.
No, and if we're trying to initiate some sort of coup amongst the people, and there's this nascent or burgeoning resistance movement, let's say in Iran, there were tens of thousands of students that are ready to storm the barricades of the mullahs, and all they need is some moral courage, moral encouragement of some kind, and that's the context. Then yeah, you want to go there and or publicly side with them and give them sort of like moral support or whatever. If that's important, there's no resistance in North Korea. There's no resistance in North Korea. The whole thing is a complete slave pen.
Right.
So the fate of the North Koreans, I mean, if we annihilate the North Koreans with a nuclear bomb because Kim keeps launching bombs at Guam or Japan, or launches a bomb at Guam, I mean, we're going to completely eviscerate everyone in the country. So if you're really worried about the North Korean, if that's your first concern, give me a break. But you're right. That should be like the fifth thing on our list.
They've also said this about Russia. Oh, you're giving Putin propaganda. You're giving Putin recordings of Trump saying how great Putin is. And that's bad for Russians. I don't really care. I mean, okay, is in an ideal world, we could save the Russians, but, I'm sorry,
I think the Russians get it. The Russians
I think
are
the
pretty
Russians
smart.
get it too. Yeah. They know exactly what they're dealing with.
Right, but we have strategic interests in Syria and the Middle East with how Russia deals with Iran. Russia's in bed with Iran. They control Iran to some extent. Russia trades with North Korea. They have influence on the North Korean border, and they have influence with China. There's a whole host of issues in which it would be good for us to be able to utilize some sort of positive relationship with the Russians to get our way. Economically, throughout the Near East and the Middle East, and in the in Asia. So this idea, should Trump have gone there and slit his throat? I mean,
people weren't
then
really
what?
saying that, were they, about Putin? I don't think I heard that.
I saw one objectivist writer wrote that the only way that he would have felt that Trump meeting with Kim would have been acceptable is if he would have abducted him or killed him on the spot.
Yeah, I don't.
He literally said that in an article.
I think it's fine to negotiate with these people to try to get things to happen without having to risk lives. I mean, we know that if we bomb North Korea, we know that South Korea would pay a huge price. So, why not? Why not meet with the guy? Who gives a shit? Like, we're not giving the guy positive propaganda. Everybody gets it. And like you said, he's spinning what he's spinning within his own country regardless. It just doesn't matter as long as we get what's right for us. Anyway, we can move on. And really, it's the show. We've come to the end of the show. It's like, that's a really big topic. But I think to sum up and try to get back to the point that I was hoping that we could make about Trump is that, he's done some good things. He hasn't done some other things. He's pretty much trying to fulfill his promises. He's not the most articulate genius. He's no Ted Cruz intellectually, or Rand Paul or whatever. I agree with you that he should be more focused on domestic problems. He's very focused on foreign policy and these tariffs and stuff, instead of tearing down our debt issues and our horrible education issues. Although he's gotten some great people, Betsy DeVos is great. I think she's not tough enough. Like, why they're not out talking about dismantling this whole federal Department of Education, and really also the student loan subsidy for colleges and stuff with what's going on in college. To me, that is such a huge deal, and I think a more intellectual person understands that. So he's flawed. He's obviously flawed. But with this stuff and the way the criticism he's getting foreign policy wise, I'm content to kind of sit back and wait and see what happens. I don't think he's going to lay down and now that he's met with Kim Jong-un, let Kim Jong-un do whatever he wants. Like, that's stupid. There's no evidence that Trump's going to act like that, and yet that's what people are saying. So, he's tougher than that. The EU is now coming around and talking about negotiating a better trade trade situation between our country and the EU. That's good. That's good for American business. It's too bad we live in a world where that has to happen, but that's the world we live in right now. So anyway, I just think people need to be a little less knee-jerk. I hate Trump, so everything he does is horrible. If like tariffs are bad, they in general, it'd be great not to have tariffs. But if he's using them to get the EU to back down on their shitty tariffs, that's not such a bad thing, and that's kind of what has to happen. I don't see them changing without economic pressure like that. Losing access to a giant market. That's what they have to be facing in order to change. So that's what Trump's trying to do.
If you decry tariffs and you don't like tariffs, the only way to combat them is to threaten the other side. I mean, you don't just say, please don't do that.
Please stop putting tariffs on us.
Please stop the 10% auto tariff. We're only charging you 2.5%.
And then they say, no. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
And that's what the character you just mimicked is essentially the essence of our foreign policy for like the last 25 years.
Right.
Okay.
Or Obama would say, well, maybe you should take it to 15% on our autos because
it's bad for the environment. Autos
because
are
we're
bad
really
for the environment.
sorry. And we're really, really sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. If you tax us 5% more on everything, maybe we could like make amends for being so great.
And ban our straws.
Yeah. We'll ban straws while the rest of the world pollutes the ocean with impunity.
Right. While they're building more nuclear missiles.
But Americans can't have straws. Yeah. So thank God Trump is in office. Honestly, it could be Hillary. Just think about that.
Did you see her in that big coat thing she was wearing, that mumu? What the hell was that?
Well, I think she's probably, now that the election is over, she always does this. She's running for office. She loses weight. She gets a hairdo. She wears all these fancy clothes. And then in between elections, she really lets herself go. I don't know if you've noticed that, but when she was Secretary of State, she looked like the really overweight Walmart truck driver husband. No offense to you, Walmart truck driver husband people out there. I probably should. There's probably like half my audience. But you know what I'm saying? Like, she looked like a person who's home all day and just kind of puts her hair up in a ponytail and doesn't wear makeup, doesn't care about her looks, is eating junk food all day. That's what she looked like when she was Secretary of State. And then she ran for office again, and all of a sudden she slimmed down and her hair was perfect all the time. And she's now in her gradual decline. And if she does run for office in 2020, right around mid-2019, she'll pick it up. Or actually, that's when she'll be campaigning. So
she'll go into the laboratory at the DNC, and they'll install the wires that give her a Southern accent. Remember when she was parroting a Southern accent?
What the hell, that woman.
She's like Lee Majors in Bionic Man.
Passing out on the campaign trail, falling over and having seizures and like wearing weird braces and things like that. Is she really going to run again?
Well, she has a brace now. Did you see that thing sticking out of her back? Yeah,
I've seen that. I don't know what's going on with her. She needs to be honest about her health because I don't know. And that muumuu she was wearing the other day, that's crazy. Who thought that was a good idea?
I love how she was just this complete creation. She's sort of like those boy bands that Hollywood creates every 2 years. She's like a democratic, like a political incarnation.
She's where the Backstreet Boys of politics.
They fabricate this like political bot. Like let's put in 13% feminism. We'll put in 12% soccer mom. Yeah. And they've tried
Hillary,
to create this.
We found that you need to have a lower voice, so let's practice a lower octave.
Right. They put in a chip, somewhere in her brain to
remember all
lower
that
her
coughing
voice.
That she was doing?
Oh, God.
This woman cannot run for office again. She's going to die.
Well, remember when the media had that 3-day freak out over Trump's health, where they were talking about his Diet Coke habit, and they browbeat his physician at that press conference about, is he fit? Is he mentally fit? I'm like, as if they're suddenly worried about the guy's health. I mean, I thought they wanted him to be unhealthy.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about health and vitality, if that's your concern.
Yeah, we want to impeach him. We want him to survive so we can impeach him. We don't want him to just die.
That wouldn't be fair and sporting. We want to humiliate him.
It's a funny irony because they're like, impeach. Hey, wait a sec. Is he taking care of himself? He's not fit for office.
He's drinking too much Diet Coke.
He's going to drop dead. Impeach.
So great.
All right, that's it for our show today. Hey, comment here, you guys, on YouTube or Facebook, or call us. Tell us what you'd like us to discuss, who you'd like me to have on as a guest. You can follow me on Facebook at Sunny Lohman and subscribe to my YouTube channel at House of Sunny. Go over to Patreon, support us. Check out Doug over at the Rational Capitalist blog or on Facebook under Rational Capitalist. The website, I think, is ratcap.com, yeah?
Ratcap.com, yep.
Talk to y'all next week.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded, and because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.